I'm here with Gleb Tsipursky. Did I say that right, Gleb?
You did. You did a great
Right.
job.
Gleb is the author of Find Your Purpose Using Science. He's the founder of Intentional Insights. He is a professor at The Ohio State University, a historian of science, and he has published peer-reviewed work in academia. So today I want to talk to you about your book, Find Your Purpose Using Science.
Mhm.
I read that book. You gave it to me for free at the Secular Students Alliance conference. But immediately when someone comes up to me and tells me, I want you to find your purpose, I'm skeptical. But then I read your book. So, first off, how would you define purpose?
Sure. That's a very important question when we talk about these broad topics because different people define them differently. So I define purpose the way the scholarship on meaning and purpose defines this question. And that's that broad aspiration that moves us to, empowers us, motivates us to do the things that we do in our everyday life. So it's that broad, long-term aspiration. That's how the scholarship on meaning and purpose defines purpose, and that's how I use purpose in my book on that question.
So, would you define purpose as subjective or objective? It seems like it'd be a subjective to someone's individual
Purpose,
desires.
purpose is very much subjective in the literature on purpose and meaning in life. So it's very much of a subjective thing. It's a sensibility. It's a sense that one has of having purpose. And each individual person has a different sense of meaning and purpose in life. So the science on this question suggests that we need to find our own sense of purpose. And in the book, I go into how one can find one's sense of purpose. And the book is available, the free version is available on the Intentional Insights websites, intentionalinsights.org. So you can check that out for more.
So, what's an example, I guess, of a science-based strategy on how you would find purpose in life?
Sure, great question. So let's talk, there are three broad areas that the science suggests we can find our purpose and meaning in. So three broad areas. One of those broad areas, so one is self-reflection. So self-reflection, the research shows, is one broad area in which one can find meaning and purpose in life. So second broad area is community belonging and social bonds. Community belonging, social bonds, social affiliation, that's another broad area in which we can find our sense of meaning and purpose. And the third broad area is serving others. So engaging with others, serving them, engaging with something much broader than ourselves. So those are the three broad areas that I talk about in the book. And you asked for a specific strategy. Let me go to self-reflection. So one specific strategy in self-reflection is journaling. So journaling is a science-based, science-informed strategy for how we can find our sense of purpose in life. And there are specific journaling prompts that I suggest in the book for people to go into on how they can use journaling to find their sense of purpose in life. We can talk about that, or we can talk about other strategies, whatever you think would be best.
Well, talk a little about journalism or
Sure.
journaling. You said it's like, well, how would, first off, let's define science. Do you mean like the
Sure.
scientific method? Because you're using the word science a lot. So let's start there.
Sure, of course. So definitely, it's a scientific method, hypothesis, data, and revision of hypothesis. That's the basic scientific method. And what the science of meaning and purpose is about is evaluating people's sense of meaning and purpose in life. So their sense of that. So the way the science goes about this is asking people to self-report their sense of meaning and purpose in life. And it correlates that to different criteria. So something that the science of meaning and purpose has found is that a sense of meaning and purpose, a personal sense of meaning and purpose, correlates very strongly with health, with physical health. So for example, people who have a strong sense of meaning and purpose in life have a much lower risk of stroke. So much less likely to have stroke, much less likely to have heart attacks, decreased risk of Alzheimer's, decreased risk of various sorts of problematic behaviors, such as alcoholism and stuff like that. So various physical indicators of good health, longevity has been associated with meaning and purpose. So those are some scientific studies on physical health. There have been also studies on mental health. So a sense of meaning and purpose is correlated with a sense of satisfaction in everyday life, a sense of well-being, much lower likelihoods of things like depression, anxieties, and various problems associated with those areas. So that's research in psychology and medicine. Now, there's also research in cognitive neuroscience. So people have been researched, their brains have been scanned really in relation to the question of meaning and purpose in life. And people who have a sense of meaning and purpose in life, there has been shown to have less production of cortisol. So cortisol is a stress hormone, something essentially associated with stress. So that is a brain pathway that is one reason why a sense of meaning and purpose has better health outcomes in both physical health and mental health, that people have less production of this highly problematic hormone in the brain, and so they have better health, basically. So that's some of the science behind meaning and purpose, and how it correlates scientifically to better health, and how scientists have been able to find these questions.
So my next question is going to be, how do you measure purpose in life? But it seems like you've kind of answered that question by saying it has, it seems like there's been many studies on, is it just, I guess my question is, I'm trying to word it here. Is it just a stress thing? The less stress you have in your life, the less likely you are to have heart attacks, etc. Or do you think it's directly related to the feeling of my life has a purpose?
It's directly related to the feeling of my life has a purpose. The people with the same level of stress or the same level of external stress are much better capable of coping with stress or with everyday life conditions, or even lack of stress, if they have a strong sense of meaning and purpose in life. I'll give you an example. The original research on this question was done by Viktor Frankl. So he's the grandfather of the science of meaning and purpose. And he was actually one of the prisoners in the Holocaust concentration camps. So he was a Jew, and he was a psychologist, and he was a prisoner. And he both studied and performed therapeutic interventions in people's lives during the Holocaust concentration camps. And we all know that's a horrible place to be. Hard to pick anything worse. And he found that people who had a sense of meaning and purpose, what he called the will to meaning, they had a much better chance of surviving and thriving in that sort of environment. So people who had that sense of meaning and purpose with the same sort of condition as others, they had a much better chance of succeeding, of surviving and thriving. And the science has found this to be the case. So it's not the case that it's external indicators. The external conditions can be all the same. It's how one experiences them. It's how one engages with them. So having that sense of meaning and purpose can lead one to have a much better likelihood of coping well with stress, with anything in life, and just having a much better life, having much better health outcomes. So that is the answer to your question. Now, there's a specific question that I can get to on how we measure meaning and purpose, but I wanted to make sure to address the question on stress and see if you had any further thoughts on that.
No, yeah, that was going to be my follow-up, is how then would we measure meaning and purpose if it's subjective?
Yes. So there are, like anything in life, depression is subjective. Anxiety is subjective. Pain is subjective. How we measure them, how scientists measure them, is by using questionnaires, self-reported questionnaires. So you read my book, you saw in the book that there's a questionnaire, the meaning and purpose questionnaire, that I developed based on my research and those of others to evaluate meaning and purpose in life. And the questionnaire is available on the website, intentionalinsights.org. It's one of the things that's available in the book. And we also have an app that allows people to evaluate their sense of meaning and purpose. That's basically the questionnaire in an app form. So it's very convenient and easy to use. Again, on the website, you can check it out there. So the questionnaire is a questionnaire that people take. It's a scientific instrument, and people take that and they can evaluate their current sense of meaning and purpose in life. Now, it's very important to not compare one person to another, because different people can give different answers. So one question on the questionnaire is, what is your current sense of meaning and purpose in life? And somebody might say a 5, and it's a 1 out of 10 questionnaire. Somebody might say a 5, and somebody might say a 3, and somebody might say a 7. But we don't know what's actually going on in their minds when they say these things. So the crucial thing is to compare oneself to oneself over time and see what kind of changes there are in your personal sense of meaning and purpose over time. So taking that questionnaire, taking that app over time is the crucial thing. And what the scientists who study meaning and purpose do is specifically that. They give someone a questionnaire, and then they perform an intervention. So questionnaire first, then intervention, then performing the questionnaire again, the second time. And so that way they can evaluate what kind of an impact some sort of intervention had on a person's sense of meaning and purpose. For example, right now, I'm in the early stages of conducting a study on what kind of impact the book has on somebody's sense of meaning and purpose in life. So they're starting with taking the questionnaire, then reading the book, then taking the questionnaire again. And that gives us a sense, that gives us a clear answer on how the book as an intervention mechanism had impacted that person's sense of meaning and purpose. And there are, of course, other details of the study with control groups that I'm not going to go into here unless you're curious about it. But that's the kind of study that will be done to evaluate this question.
I was going to ask if you've done any control groups or any correlation causation experiments with your book here, but it sounds like you're in the middle of one right now.
Yes. So the study that we're doing, I'm doing it with a professor of social work, Joe Guada, who is on the Intentional Insights Advisory Board. So he's an expert in intervention and experimental research, and I'm an expert in the subject matter of meaning and purpose. So we're collaborating together on this, and we are having a group that's going to be the control group, who basically take the questionnaire, then they don't read the book. So they don't read the book, then they take the questionnaire again. And that's a control group. Now, we are also going to have a group that's going to take the questionnaire, then read the book, then take the questionnaire again. And that's the experimental group. So same population, we're going to tell them all that we're doing this study, and so it will be people who want to participate. So there will be homogeneous populations. And then some people, half of the people will be given the book and half of the people will not be given the book. So we can know specifically, very clearly, what kind of a difference the book makes as such. So that's the study.
It's not a blind study at all. I mean, they're fully aware of what the study is.
They are aware of what the study is. Sure. Yes, it's not.
How would you
do a blind study in this sense? Yes.
How would you answer a theist who say, without God or afterlife, there can't be a purpose? If this is all there is to life, and once we die, the universe forgets we exist, how can there be a purpose to life?
Right. So great question. So I would ask the theist what kind of a purpose to life there is if there is no God. You know, if there is no God, then their purpose in life, then they lose any sort of purpose in life. So if there is the possibility that there is no God, then there's no purpose in their life. Whereas people who are secular, they can have purpose in life through finding their own sense of purpose. And that's what the book does. It guides people to find their own sense of purpose. So purpose, as the research shows, is not something that comes from God. That's not what the purpose comes from. It comes from an internal experience. Some people can find their purpose in God, but that's only because they chose to do so. There's nothing inherently external indicating that one needs to find one's purpose in God, despite mainstream media claims and books like Rick Warren's The Purpose-Driven Life. The research has shown that people who have meaning and purpose do not need to find it from God. That's what the science says. So if you look at the science, if you trust the science, that's what the science says. So that's, that's what I would answer that piece. That, I rely on science.
You mentioned Rick Warren. I think in your book you actually mentioned
Yes.
in The Purpose-Driven Life, and in the book you claimed, and I've read his book too many years ago. His main point is all of us ask, why am I here? What is my purpose in life?
Mm-hmm.
And we then base off that purpose off those two questions. And of course, he comes to the conclusion it's through God. Can you answer that question using science? Why am I here? And what is my, well, obviously we talked about what is my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need to answer the question, why am I here, in order to find purpose?
Yeah, so that's the basic question of purpose. Why am I here, and what is that broad overarching goal that will motivate me to lead my life? And that's the question that the purpose making and the meaning making activities in the book guide people through. So the book guides people to define their goal in life, which is that broad overarching goal that is the science defines as the sense of purpose. So why are you here? You get that by finding that goal for yourself, by figuring out what is your goal, what is the thing that motivates you to lead your life and to do the kind of things that you do in your everyday life. Because that is so fundamental to us, to have that broad, overarching, aspiring goal to which we aim our efforts toward. So that is what the book does. You go and you figure out what kind of goals people have that they can aspire to. And I give an example of some of my goals. So my sense of purpose comes from aspiring toward happiness, fulfillment, and flourishing. And happiness for me is just sense of enjoyment and satisfaction in my everyday life. And fulfillment is a sense that I'm fulfilling my values toward myself, toward others, and toward my community. And flourishing is a sense of wellness and thriving in all of my life areas. So that is my purpose, to aspire to that. And other people can have other purposes in life. Religious people find their purpose in serving God. So for example, one of the people who I speak to quite frequently as a friend of mine is a United Methodist minister, and Caleb Pitkin. And he finds his purpose in serving God and in loving God. But he admits and accepts that just because he finds his purpose in that doesn't mean that all people need to find their purpose in that. So he is quite accepting of me finding my purpose in a different sense. And it's all about his internal experience. So he has a certain internal experience that leads him to believe that his purpose is in that direction. And I have an internal experience of a sense of purpose, which leads me to a different direction. And it's all about how people internally develop their sense of purpose. It's all subjective. It's all inside us. And that is the key, that our sense of purpose is something that we discover for ourselves. And the book helps guide people to discovering that sense of purpose through things like journaling, through things like meditation, things like community belonging, and so on. And again, so intentionalinsights.org for the free version. But again, this thing that we call purpose is simply another word for the broad aspiration that guides us throughout life.
You mentioned meditation as the second point there. What is secular meditation? Is it sitting in a room quiet, just gathering your thoughts? Is it trying to find your inner voice? How would you describe secular meditation?
Sure. So secular meditation, so let me start again at the science aspect of it. The science of meditation has been studied, has begun in the late 1970s with John Kabat-Zinn as one of the four founders, who has studied the medical impact of meditation on people's physical health and mental health. So he specifically studied the question of pain and how meditation can reduce people's pain. And that was the early studies. And then he expanded into many other studies, and others have done a lot of studies on meditation too. So meditation is simply a process of focusing on something and putting our minds focus on something. And that is a very important tool for mental fitness. Just like we do exercise to improve our physical fitness, we can do exercises to improve our mental fitness. Meditation is simply one of these exercises, and a very powerful one that can be used in many ways. So if you think of, exercise and going to the gym, you go to the gym, there's not only one machine, there's many machines that you do. You can do the running machine, you can do the bicycling machine, you can do swimming, whatever you want to do, weightlifting. Meditation is sort of like that. There are many types of meditation, and they can all serve different purposes. They can all serve different aims, different goals. So, for example, there's the breathing meditation, where you simply focus on your breath. That helps, what the research shows is that helps build up focus, and that helps build up calmness. So if you want to build up your ability to focus on something intensely and be calm down various stresses, various problems. If you want to slow down your emotional reaction time, for example, managing anger, managing anxiety, managing stress, that breathing meditation is quite helpful, and various other meditations like that. If you want to accomplish a certain result, changing your mind about something, reframing your thinking, there are various visualization meditations that can be done. If you want to change your mood, there are various mood or meditations. If you want to, for example, have an experience of joy and happiness, there are two types of meditations that I can talk about: the loving kindness meditation and the happy place meditation, and many others. But specifically for purpose-oriented meditations, there are various visualization meditations, and I can go into that, but first I wanted to check in on what you wanted to talk about, Matt.
Yeah, give me an example of loving meditation.
Sure. So loving kindness is focusing on the emotion of love, what that feels like. So first, getting into a meditative state of mind. So that usually involves sitting down in a meditative position, or just in a calm, relaxed position, whatever feels most comfortable to you. Then focusing on your breath to get into a meditative state of mind. So letting go of external thoughts is essentially what a meditative state of mind is. So not having that constant buzz of thinking about, what am I going to eat for dinner, or what's, that argument that you had with your boss, or something like that. So letting go of those thoughts that constantly flicker through our minds, and then focusing on the experience of love. Love for anything, love for your spouse, love for your family, love for humanity, whatever that feels like for you. So focusing on the emotional experience of love, and then directing it toward yourself first, so love for yourself, and directing that warm, positive feeling towards yourself to help yourself have a better experience of life, have a better mood. Then so that's a basic loving kindness. Then if you want to experience positive feelings toward others, if, for example, you had an argument with your wife, but you don't want to, continue having negative feelings about your wife, then you just can direct that loving kindness toward your wife and experience positive emotions toward her to heal that disconnection caused by the argument. The same thing with your boss. You might not want to continue having negative feelings toward your boss or your friend or whoever. If, for example, Rush Limbaugh says something idiotic again, and you just don't want to spend your emotional energy wasting away on Rush Limbaugh, you can direct some loving kindness toward Rush Limbaugh and think that, maybe somebody somewhere out there has nice feelings toward him. Maybe his pet has nice feelings toward him. So just to not continue being stressed out about what Rush Limbaugh said. So that's a really good way of managing your mood, having better feelings for yourself and having better feelings for others.
And then the third point you mentioned, the sense of community.
Mm-hmm.
So to talk a little bit about that. What if you don't like a sense of community? Say you're an introvert, not an extrovert. You like being at home. Say you're a sociopath and you just don't like other people. Could you still get that sense of community or find your purpose?
Sure. So I don't have enough background on sociopaths to really answer that question. So let's skip that. For introvert, yeah, you definitely can find a sense of purpose through community. First of all, these are, I want to say, these are not obligatory. So self-reflection is the only really important one. Community and serving others are more defined by what one's personality is. If one is really a loner, then one can not have such a strong sense of community, but it's really beneficial to have a sense of social bonds. So I'm personally an introvert. Yeah, you might not tell that by how I'm engaging, but I identify as an introvert. So it's training for me to engage with people. But as an introvert, I can tell you that it's really helpful for me to have one-on-one conversations with people. That's what really functions well for introverts. So developing strong social bonds through one-on-one conversations and deep relationships with fewer people can help introverts find that sense of purpose, to the same extent that extroverts can find it in a large group in a community setting. And the community can also involve virtual community, so online community. So many introverts like myself participate in online forums. I participate in various secular online forums, Reddit and various secular groups, Facebook. And that's another way of finding community that introverts like myself often use to develop those sort of community bonds and community connections that don't require actually going outside and participating in a large group setting.
When you say community, my natural thought is going out and volunteering to clean up the park or something like that. But like you said, there's, especially in 2015 with the internet, you have Reddit, you have all these other forums where you don't need that anymore.
Yeah, you don't need that anymore, and you can. So the aspect of serving others can be performed through things like Reddit. For example, I know that the atheist Reddit, so our atheist often holds community donations, community charity events for various secular causes. So that's a way that secular people can participate in serving others in social justice activities through secular settings. Another way is through the Foundation Beyond Belief. That's a major way that secular people can participate in serving others without actually going out and doing things. You can also volunteer online. There are plenty of volunteer opportunities that you can do online. If you're good at writing, the Foundation Beyond Belief or the Secular Student Alliance or Camp Quest or many other secular organizations can certainly use someone to do various writing work for them and many other things. So there are plenty of ways of serving others and building up community in online formats.
We may be getting out of your expertise, so feel free to tell me if you are. But do you think serving others is something humans as a species do naturally enjoy doing through evolution? Or because there's some people out there who may not enjoy, I guess, helping others. I don't know if you'd call them sociopaths, that's beyond your expertise, which is fine. But if you just enjoy not helping others, can there be a purpose to your life? Or do you think humans instinctively have that empathy to help others? Does that make sense?
Sure. I hear what you're saying, Matt. So the research has shown that serving others strongly correlates with a sense of life purpose. Now, it doesn't mean that if you don't serve others, you will not be able to get a sense of life purpose, but it does mean that most likely it will be quite a bit harder for you to have a sense of life purpose without serving others. So that's the question about life purpose. Now, question about evolution. is that I do have some knowledge about this topic. There is research showing that we are evolved to engage with others and to be empathetic toward others. So if anyone wants to look this up, there's a good book about this by Daniel Goleman called Social Intelligence. So again, that's Daniel Goleman, Social Intelligence. And it's basically describes how our brains are evolved in such a way as to be naturally empathetic toward others. We feel good. Our emotions have evolved in such a way as to cause us to feel good when we serve others in some way, when we engage with others in some way. Now, that may be something that we can overcome with willpower, just like we overcome the desire to procreate, with willpower, and we are not bound by evolution to have children. I, for example, don't have children and don't plan to, but evolution does pull us to help others through the way our minds have evolved.
So can a Christian, can a theist, can a Muslim, can they get purpose out of your book?
Out of what?
Can they get the purpose out of your book? Is your book
Sure.
just for atheists?
It is. They can choose to do some exercises. They definitely can. The book is about finding purpose using science, not how secular people find purpose. So, and I mentioned that I engaged with a United Methodist Reverend, Caleb Pitkin, who read through the book and who gave me feedback on the book, and whose feedback I took into consideration when revising the book. And the exercises that are there, for example, the journaling exercises, they're not exclusive to secular people. They're for all people, and all people can do those exercises. All people can do the meditations if they choose to do so. They can also do the various community activities that I suggest. So I suggested one type of community activity, which I laid out in the book, which is called the Values and Meanings activity, where people get together and talk about various values and meanings they have in their life. And many more details are found in the book, which again is at intentionalinsights.org for the free version. And the event, Values and Meanings, is based on a long-running event I held at my house with my wife and co-founder of Intentional Insights, Agnes Vishnevkin. And we basically had secular and also religious people come together and talk about the various meaning and values they find in their lives, how they experience them, and how they can convey them to others. And so these are basic, deep questions that people who are both religious and secular can find in their lives. However, because this is a book called Find Your Purpose Using Science, is especially oriented toward benefiting secular people who otherwise don't have this sort of venue to engage with community activities as religious people do in church, and they don't have that automatic answer, oh, where do I find purpose? Well, in God, right? That religious people do. So that's the specific benefit of this book to secular people.
And tell me a little bit about Intentional Insights before we wrap this up, and how we can learn more about that.
Sure. So Intentional Insights is an organization, it's a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit, that basically helps people refine and reach their goals through providing research-based content that improves thinking, feeling, and behavior patterns. And we provide blogs, videos, books like the one we talked about here, apps, online classes, and many other genres, many other formats that are basically free or very low cost for people to engage with. It's science-based self-improvement stuff. In the secular movement, we have great popularizers of material science, such as Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson, but we don't really have popularizers of brain science, and really no way of applying this brain science to everyday life. And that's why we're here. We want to help people apply brain science to everyday life, to help improve their lives, to help them reach their goals through improving thinking, feeling, and behavior patterns. The only thing in life we have control over, really, is ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors. And that's the key that we want to help people with, where we want to help people improve. So that is what the organization is all about. It has a great team of members. It's myself, and I'm a historian of science working at the intersection of cognitive neuroscience, psychology, and medicine. It has on its advisory board, it has people who are professors in social work, professors in education, professors in various other fields. We have people who are on the advisory board who are secular activists, who are startup entrepreneurs. My co-founder and wife, Agnes Vishnyevkin, has an MBA in nonprofit management, so she speaks to business people. We have other people like Max Harms, who you interviewed earlier in your show, who is an expert in statistics and math and in programming. Serena Gilliland, who is an expert in graphics design and so on, and many other people who are just enthusiastic and very eager about spreading this knowledge about how we can use our brains, our minds, to help improve our lives. So that's what Intentional Insights is all about. And I hope you check it out at intentionalinsights.org.
Yeah, the website, intentionalinsights.org. The name of the book, Find Your Purpose Using Science. Thanks for joining us this evening, Gleb.